Hey everyone, Burdell here with Antera Agronomy. A while back, we did a video talking about five different things that we would, or five things we would have recommended or done different. Hindsight is 2020. This past growing season, 2023. So today, I wanted to talk about five things that our producers did right this year. So number one was chased moisture. So being a drier year in the Red River Valley, typically we are not lacking in spring moisture. So the shallower we can seed it, the faster it's out of the ground, the quicker we're off to the races. While this year, being as dry as it was, the guys that went shallow and were expecting a rain or waiting on a rain to get the crop going evenly didn't come. So we had a lot of poor stands and mixed emergence on some fields. Now, it's very key to get the field emerged all at the same time or within a specific period of time, because that's going to affect us all the way down the line. It's going to affect us on herbicide timings, fungicide timings, even harvest. So it's key to get that crop off to the best start possible right off the hop. And the guys that chased moisture this year, yeah, it took a little bit longer to come out of the ground, but it all came out. It was even. And I would argue that the guys that chased the moisture also had better root development, and it seemed like it found the moisture and it followed the moisture down the water table throughout the season as we drew out of the water table. The sun that was shallow seeded, that stayed shallow, it's like it couldn't find where that moisture was. It didn't know where to go. It spread its roots out laterally instead of going down. And those crops seem to struggle all year. So definitely on a drier year, we want to chase moisture. It's a bit counterintuitive, but in a case like this, it's important. It makes all the difference. We see it in corn every year. You want to seed deep enough that it all comes up at the same time. Number two is, in a lot of cases, there were guys, we waited to plant canola and soybeans. So because of our short growing seasons, typically the sooner we put it in the ground, the better we are, because on a cool season crop, it'll flower and grain fill ahead of the really hot temperatures in late July, early August. But this last couple of years, it seems the guys that waited to plant canola, the canola came out of the ground faster. It was able to fight flea beetles better. So it wasn't, you didn't have a drag in growth because they were fighting flea beetles. And even soybeans, a lot of these crops were able to take advantage of some August rains that helped with grain fill later on. So for some reason, it's these last couple of years, later seeded crops tended to do better. Is it going to be like that every year? Probably not, but it's something that we have to gauge in the springtime with moisture conditions and the outlook and where our water table's at. So we need to be able to adjust and make decisions as they go. This is something that Antera helps their customers with every time. Number three, guys that harrowed or cultivated canola stubble ahead of corn. So typically they say we're not supposed to put corn on canola stubble because canola doesn't use mycorrhizae, so there's a drop in the mycorrhizae numbers, which help make phosphate available to crops. So you end up with purple corn. Well, this year we had some fields that were really bad with purple corn, and normally we don't have an issue with putting corn on canola stubble, but there was definitely a huge difference between guys that even just harrowed the stubble ahead of the planting corn, or had done some minimal till on it, or vertical till. Didn't matter if it was fall or spring, as long as you touched it once, that seemed to be enough. The guys that zero tilled or that went straight into corn stubble that did it right according to the practices of zero till, yeah, we ended up with some serious purpling in the corns. It was managed to pull out of it and still gave us a decent yield, but we question what could it have been. Number four, were guys that were able to cut losses due to dry conditions. So we had some pockets in our area that we work in where they had next to no rain all summer, and guys that identified that early were able to cut costs, cut expenses to maintain profitability or maximize their profitability. So when we look at the profitability equation, yield times price minus your expenses, anything we can do to drive up to create yield or minimize our expenses is going to have a positive impact on our profitability. The guys that identified that the potential wasn't there this year were able to cut corners. This could be cutting back on top dress applications of fertilizer. It could be cutting back on fungicides or expensive fungicides and going with cheaper options. If the conditions were dry and weren't there for disease, that's one of the other places where we can make adjustments. It's important to be able to have a plan A, B, C, D. Weather is so variable. It changes the outlook of the crop or the yield potential numerous times throughout the season. So we need to be able to adjust. This year, cereal crops like wheat, for example, that set their yield between the 3 to 6 leaf stage. Well, we already had 25 to 30 plus degrees Celsius weather at that time. So we already knew that our yields were it wasn't going to be a monster cereal crop. So these are all things that we need to do and adjust as the season goes to maintain or maximize our profitability. Lastly, I want to talk about narrow rows and the ability to fight weed resistance. We had a field, a particular example this year was a field that we knew we had water hemp in the one corner. We didn't think, like on a headland, we didn't think it was going to progress across the whole field or that we had it across the whole field, but the field was put into wheat this year and there was a drill miss or a drill skip about 50 feet by 50 feet at one end of the field near a headland where there was no wheat, and that was full of pigweeds and water hemp. So we found out we had water hemp across the field, but we wouldn't have known unless we had that drill skip. And wherever there was the wheat was cut off or where it stopped, that part of the field was clean. So pigweeds germinate, they need sunlight to germinate. The faster you can get it canopy cover, the less problem you're going to have with these types of weeds, because they'll shade out the ground and then these weed seeds don't germinate. So just goes to show the importance of having narrow rows to canopy, cover the ground faster, and help fight not only weed resistance, but weeds in general. So I hope you've enjoyed this series of videos. Again, this was the top 5 things that we did right, or we saw our producers and recommended right this year. If you like this video series, check out our YouTube channel. We're on all the socials. Our website is anteraag.ca. Thanks again. We'll catch you in the next one.